It seems nearly every day we read headlines that make us want to stay inside and never go out. But the March issue of Conde Nast Traveler makes the case that not only should we get out, we should travel far and fearlessly. Here with a look at why we should travel now is Conde Nast Traveler Editor-in-Chief, Pilar Guzman. Pilar, welcome. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
In this month's editor's letter, you start with a personal story. Can you tell us about that?
More like an impassioned plea. 2 days after, 2 days before the Istanbul attacks, I had been in that very square with my family on holiday there, and you know, people emailed me furiously. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're back and safe, and thank God, and all of this. And I said, no, the response is I would go back tomorrow. This is not a, I'm glad, whew, I'm glad I'm home. It's one of these things, you know, if we listen to the news and we only follow our fear, and you know, there are travel advisories, and then there is the sort of news cycle, and of course, these attacks can't be underestimated. They can't be you know, we can't be too careful, but at the same time, if something can happen in San Bernardino, it can happen anywhere.
You also make the point, you look at the numbers. You have to be rational about it.
You have to be rational, that you are likelier to get in an automobile accident, not even just abroad, but right in your own hometown. You are likelier to, any number of things can befall you before a terrorist attack is going to strike. And again, I don't mean to minimize it, but I think we have to just be sober about it, and I think we get freaked out.
Absolutely, and we lose more than just a vacation if we don't go to these places that are so beautiful. Tell us, you looked at 21 influencers, you interviewed 21 influencers, and asked them why travel now. Was there a common thread?
You know, apart from what you would expect, you know, the sort of travel makes you more empathetic, it makes you connect with other cultures, and therefore, you know, the opposite is fear in some ways is the opposite of empathy in this situation. And so I think it's very easy to kind of catastrophize one incident and assign it to a culture in some way, which is the most dangerous place we can be, I think, psychologically, emotionally. I think, you know, very practically speaking, you know, the less we support these economies that are, you know, look what's happening in Egypt. We've abandoned Egypt, and you know, those sites are falling, you know, under there's looting going on, and it's and that country will destabilize as a result and become more susceptible to radicalization.
Right. So all of these places, Cairo, Bali, Istanbul, Paris, I don't think anyone anymore is worried about, or perhaps.
Right, but why not?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? I think it's because it's less other than some of these other places are. And
good point, good point.
And I think our fear, you know, understandably dictates our travel plans.
So tell us, for someone like me who's never been to Turkey, paint the picture, if you will. I mean, what's the magic there that we can see?
The magic of Istanbul and Turkey at large is that it is truly the intersection of all cultures and of civilization, and you have it literally, you know, straddles east and west, the city itself, and you see that it's very European on one hand and very not on the other, and this is what's so wonderful about it, and you go from sort of place to place and neighborhood to neighborhood, and you capture this, you get this feeling of this is the intersection of the world.
These pictures are stunning, and I've always wanted to go. Is there a magic formula for having a very intimate and authentic travel experience?
You know, I don't know that there's any one magic formula. What I would say is let yourself walk and get lost within sort of safe parameters. I think, you know, I'm always in favor of, even if you're traveling with your family, of just having a walk by yourself, because you're much more open to something that, you know, than when you're in a pack.
Carry a map, though.
or your phone.
Your cell phone,
yeah, exactly, which is less, you know, conspicuous, which is better. I think it's about openness and actually, you know, getting out of your comfort zone and forcing yourself to have a conversation with somebody, and there's plenty of English spoken throughout most of the world, and so even language shouldn't be so much of a barrier.
And so from your perch, you can see sort of the entire sort of travel industry globally. Are you seeing certain areas suffer?
Yeah, I mean, I think ones that are on the heels of attack, of course, they're the obvious, but you know, even you look at, Africa last year with, Ebola, it was really concentrated in West Africa, and the world treated Africa like it was a country, and, rather than a continent. And East Africa was absolutely devastated. The business was at certain points 90% down. And, so I think that, again, when there's a sense of other culture that we don't quite have a handle on, unlike Paris, I think that it tends to sort of balloon.
Yes.
And I think that's the danger, is that we've got to go back to the statistics and say, okay, really, what is the likelihood? I'm taking a calculated risk. Actually, one of the greater causes of, death abroad for tourists is automobile. You drive on the wrong side of the street, you're in Australia, you're in England, whatever, and people don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Or in Asia, where the driving is just, it's a different sport there. So I think that it's, once again, it's about actually just, getting sober and saying, okay, what part of this is fear and what part of this is reality? And the reality is that these are strange times.
And
we don't
have
know what's
so much
happen.
to lose if we give in to our
That's right.
fears. We have so much to lose. Pilar, thank you so much for
Thank you.
opening our eyes up again, once again.
Thank
to
you
the
so much
wonders of
for
travel.
having me.